For those of you who don't follow me on the blog side of things, you may not be aware of a little feature that I do, not weekly, in theory every other week, but sometimes it's more sporadic than that, but it's called the Friday Five, and it's just a look at various bookish things that I may want to talk about, or non-bookish things, and it's kind of a top 5 or bottom 5 if I'm talking about the worst of something, but sort of my take on like a top 10 Tuesday meme. I don't always have 10 things I want to talk about, and I don't always want to talk about either what Top 10 Tuesday is doing, or just bookish things in general, or I want to get into really specific things, or just whatever. It's just my take. And I thought, you know, some of the topics that I cover would actually make really good book chats, and are similar to things that maybe we used to talk about in book chat. And I know it's been a while since we've had a book chat. In fact, I recently mentioned the Buzzwords and Deal Breakers book chat that we had, and I went and looked back to see how long ago that was, and it was 4 years ago, and that's kind of crazy to me. So this is kind of a compromise, I guess. It's a little bit book chat, it's a little bit Top 10 Tuesday, and though it's normally in written form, today's Friday 5 is going to be in video form, and I'm going to be talking about unread and overrepresented authors on my shelves. So a question I get asked a lot when I have my normal bookshelf background is, how many of those books have you read? Have you read all of those books? Do you know how many books you have that you haven't read? And when I answer that there are hundreds upon hundreds of books on my shelves that I haven't read, that gives some of you serious panic. Like, some people just can't fathom that. Some people are just baffled that I would have books that I haven't read, or that I would not be uncomfortable with having so many books that I haven't read. And where some of you see dread and obligation and failure to have read everything, I see excitement. I see potential and anticipation. So I don't get the dread of the bookshelf that some of you do. So some of you may not have any unread but overrepresented authors on your shelves. But for me, and if you're like me and you're a collector who gets books from lots of places, buys things on the fly, gets gifted a lot of books or sent a lot of books, you probably have a fair few that have just been lingering on your shelves for ages, and you might start to see certain names popping up over and over again. So for me, what I think are my top 5 authors that I have a lot of on my shelves but haven't been reading are as follows. First up, and without a doubt, I have a ton of Meg Cabot. At least a dozen books by Meg Cabot. Have never read anything by her. It all started with, there was a box of Meg Cabot books for like $10, and then I had a few that were given to me as gifts, and then I had a few of her adult size 12 series were sent to me by the publisher. It's just kind of piled up until I probably have 14 or 15 books. That might be an underestimation. It might be even getting closer to 20 books by Meg Cabot, and I've not read a one of them. And that is kind of silly. That's kind of shameful. And I look at them every now and then and think, I should really read you. I keep saying, like, bouncing around the idea of having like a Meg Cabot month and reading a bunch of them one month, but it has yet to happen. But she is definitely well represented on my shelves and completely unread. Another one kind of along the same lines is Francesca Lia Block. I have bought so many books by that woman because they sound good, because I think that I'll like them. Some of them I've bought on Cover Appeal because I just couldn't not, and I have yet to pick up one of them. And it's silly because a lot of hers are in verse form, so they'd be really quick reads, but it just keeps not happening. Another one, and I get asked about his books a lot. I have everything except for one that John Green has ever written. I have read one. I've read Looking for Alaska, which is what got the ball rolling. I really liked Looking for Alaska. And on the strength of that alone, I went ahead and bought everything else. And then as new books have come out, I've bought those too. Partly, I think, with the insane hype, I kind of started pushing my own desire to read him down a little bit, because now it seems so just pushed in your face all the time, so I'm less in the mood for them. But also there's a tendency in his books that I've noticed, synopsis-wise, that can sometimes bother me, which is those sort of contemporary tearjerkers that seem intended to make you cry. If you see movement behind my head, there's a kitty.
What?
You're so pretty. You want to come say hi again? Do you just love the way the internet reacted to you and you want to tell them thank you? Say thank you. Thanks, internet. Are you just going to stay right here with me? My sweetie. Yeah. Okay. You're pretty. No, no, no. Thank you. Okay, so I'm not entirely sure what I was saying, but just the kind of potential saccharineness of John Green and the string puller thing. I've talked about that before and how I don't like having my strings pulled. I don't like feeling like you're trying to make me cry. So even though I loved Looking for Alaska and I have a feeling I'll like other books of his, keep putting them off. Number 4 would probably be Stephen King, and I've been given so many Stephen King books that I haven't read, and that's because I've tried a lot of books by him, and the only ones I've ever been able to get into were the Dark Tower series. Now, I loved them passionately, wholeheartedly. I have the series, I love the series, I want to reread it sometime, but it's super long, so I don't know how soon that will happen, but I adore it. It is one of my favorite dystopias, / post-apocalyptic, really. But other things that I've tried by him I just can't get into, and so people are always like, oh hey, you're a reader, I found this at a yard sale for $1, and it's always a Stephen King book. And so I have a ton of them. I even have some that I've bought myself, because I'm compulsive, I guess. I haven't touched them. I forget they're even there, that's how little I think of them. But they take up a lot of space, most of those. I mean, they're big, honkin' books. So, yeah. I have a lot of Stephen King, and the only ones that I've ever read to completion are the Dark Tower series, so. Now for the 5th slot, that's where things start to get a little bit dicey because I have a lot of authors that, you know, I have a few books from them here and there. I have a lot of Maureen Johnson. I read the book Devilish and thought it was really cute and funny, and Maureen is so hilarious online that I kind of have been accumulating a lot of her books over the years, but still Devilish is the only one I've read. She probably does take the number 5 slot because I do have a fair amount of Maureen Johnson books. But I also have a lot of Rochelle Mead. I read the first Vampire Academy book and thought it was really funny and just kind of drew me in and I really liked it. And then I ended up winning another book in the series, and so I had to complete it. So I bought all of those. But then I also have books from the spin-off and just still have only ever read the first book of Vampire Academy, so need to get on that. I have a lot of Holly Black. Now I have read more of hers, so it's kind of a balance. Not quite half of the books that I have by her I've read, but my Holly Black collection is growing for sure. I sometimes even buy complete series worth of books on a recommendation or because I found them somewhere cheap, and the complete series sit on my shelves still to this day. And there's a whole long list of those, so I guess maybe this video is a cry for help. I may be bad with money, but I'm a good person to make friends with if you're a book lover. So those are my top 5-ish authors that I have on my shelves that are mostly unread and very well represented. But I thought it would make for an interesting chat, and it's good, I think, sometimes to just sit down and assess your bookshelves, especially if they are as ridiculous as mine. Good to kind of take stock. So in the comments, I would love to hear about some of your unread but overrepresented authors, how you've come to kind of stockpile books from certain authors, if it was recommendations, if it was just cover appeal, sounded good, it was cheap, whatever it is that adds books to your shelves, and why they've sat unread for so long. Let me know in the comments all about that, and if you are similar to me, where you kind of build a fort with all of your books and you're fine with that, or if the whole unread thing really makes you uncomfortable, let's chat about that. But that is all for this Friday 5/book chat. If you have ideas for the Friday 5 or for future book chats, definitely let me know in the comments and I will do my best to work them in. But that is all for now. As always, thanks for watching and happy reading!